Oh man, hopefully I was in frame for all of this. I probably wasn't. Hello, welcome to my channel. Usually I do creepy drawstas, but I'm not sure if you can tell by the bookshelf behind me, I also like to read. So I'm going to be showing you my 2020 A Year in Books. So all the books that I read in 2020. So these are all the books I read this year. It's a lot of books. It's really not, but it kind of seems like it because they're heavy. This is going to be a disjointed mess because I don't believe in script writing. Also, I'm going to be smart this time and flip over my viewfinder because my last video, all I was looking at was that. So bam, look at me. I'm a professional YouTuber. Yeah, so I figured, you know, I write on this channel all the time. I would love to write my own book one day. So, you know, usually people who like to write like to read too. So here's my 2020 in books. Let's start. So the first book I read, well, it's actually not the first book I read. The order's random. The first book I'm going to start with is I take off the jacket covers off of all of my books, is The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. This guy, you see him? And yeah, this is approximately 600 pages. 572 pages. This is approximately 600 pages of a character study, which is important to note when you're reading it that that's what this is. You may have seen The Invisible Man on a lot of anti-racist reading this year due to current events that happened during the year, and that's what it's well known for. It's well known for being a book about racism as we follow the narrator, a young black man, through his journey from going to college and growing up in this southern community to going to New York, and we're following him and his experiences and how race pretty much dictates his whole life. So the narrator in this book actually never gets a name. It's kind of part of the theme of Invisible. If you read it, you know. Mind you, it's set in, I believe, the 1950s. Okay, so this is 1992. Yeah, copyright is 1947. So we follow this narrator. We're basically just following his journey through adulthood and becoming a man. Saying that, it's 600 pages long. It's a character study, so it's very complex reading. It goes super in depth into like what he's thinking, when he's thinking it, why he's thinking it, what's going on in the book around him, and it's 600 pages of that. We spend so much time in like one place or in one scene or in 1 hour. It's a lot. There's nothing more to say about it except for that it's a lot. We also deal with these really difficult to get your footing in dream sequences. I am going to link below another list with anti-racist reading on it, just one of the ones that you probably saw during the current event years, because this one's a lot, especially if you're not an avid reader. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this book because it's so much. I had to listen to the audiobook for this because I got pretty far doing the regular reading, but I just couldn't get through. I got sick, I got a cold, and I could not understand what this book was trying to say, so I had to listen to it. Other than that though, it is really good, and you know, it is anti-racist reading for a reason. You really get to understand the narrator's struggles with his race and how the world views him. It's very interesting because about halfway through the book, that's a lie. About like 2/3 through the book, he interacts with this group called like the Brotherhood, and it's really just a bunch of poor white people. They don't ever want him to talk about race, even though it's the thing that dictates his life. It's the thing that he's struggled with the most and that he's trying to come to terms with, and they just want him to ignore it. And it's like, oh, society. I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it, especially as like a pasty white girl. I had to read this before the events of the year that caused a lot of people to read it, because I had to read this for my senior year of high school in my AP English class. You see my little note card in there talking about all my homework that I have to do? I got to chapter 22 and then I was like, I cannot do this. I had to listen to it. So I finished this book on Audible, actually. Because it's a character study, the plot's simple. That's what character studies are. It's a study of the character. So here's the thing about classic literature, if you're not aware. You have to pick and choose your battles. So in this one we are dealing a lot with race relations, and he's talking about, this is like a generation after the Civil War. Not even. I I believe his grandfather was a slave. There's a heavy focus on that. We're extremely focused on his experience as a black man. Because of that, women aren't treated great. It's not great. We're not, particularly black women, you know, they're just objects, things to be looked at. The only black woman who actually, like, has anything to do with the plot is very much a mother, stereotype, architect, whatever you want to call it. So keep that in mind when you're reading it. Like the first, like, real scene in the book, like when we're first getting started, like, just features a naked lady. And, like, the point of her is boobs, and the point of every woman after her is boobs, and you need to know that before you read it, just in case, because I was shocked when I first read it, because I wasn't expecting it. But classic literature, you have to pick and choose your battles, and given that this is a book heavily focused on racism, you have to pick and choose your battles. You kind of have to forgive the authors and the narrators' kind of treatment of women because of it. Interestingly enough, it actually subconsciously allows, you know, us the readers to see how black women are treated. It's obviously subconscious because the narrator genuinely believes what he says. We get to see how this is why intersectional feminism is important, you'll notice, because in this community, especially in the community formed by him, of his own mindset, he's excluding a whole group of people from it. I don't know, it's very interesting, and I am not the person to fully give you an in-depth review or, I don't know, study or essay about it. I don't even think I finished the essay that I was supposed to write about it for my AP English. So, you know, it's a good book. I do recommend it. It's just a lot. It's very dense and complicated, so I'm going to link below, again, a link for a bunch of references for anti-racism reading, in case this just was not what you were looking for. Or it just, you know, again, I would recommend it. It's just a lot. Trigger warning. Obviously, there's a lot of heavy language in here. It's rated R, and it has a lot of rated R subjects in it. It's also horrifying when you're reading it, and you see how much the events in this book paralleled what happened earlier in the year of 2020. And why it went on a lot of anti-racist reading lists. Because the narrator who has to deal with some of this stuff is dealing with situations that happened in the year 2020. So it's a little bit horrifying to read it. In it, an unarmed black man is shot, and a riot results because of this. And the riot in this book is quickly taken over by the Brotherhood, and they switch the focus of it. They focus it more on rioting and poverty instead of what the real issue was, which was that the guy was shot because he was black. It's horrifying, which is why people need to read it. Alright, we're gonna move on. Speaking of The Invisible Man, let's talk about The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. As I was saying with this book, it's very hard to segue from that one. It's very different, these two novels. This one's very short. This one's like 100 pages, I think. 140 pages? 146? You can read this in one sitting. It's great. It's a lovely novel. It's about a dude who turns himself invisible. That's it. That's the book. It's so short and simple. H.G. Wells is obviously one of the classical examples of science fiction literature, right? Everybody knows about H.G. Wells, who wrote about the time machine and stuff like that. So The Invisible Man, and obviously this dude's prevalent in our culture even today. Let me think. I don't think I even wrote in this because it was so short. I was like, what is there to say? Nothing. It's literally just about a scientist who turns himself invisible and kind of goes crazy. Was he crazy before he turned himself invisible? Yeah, kinda. It's so funny in the middle of this book because, small spoiler alert, but in the middle of the book, he ends up trying to talk to his friend, Dr. Kemp, his scientist buddy pal from college. The Invisible Man himself is named Griffin. So Griffin is like, listen dude, I'm gonna tell you my story. I turned myself invisible on accident, and then I murdered a bunch of people, and I need your help to get my books back and turn me visible. And Dr. Kemp goes, okay. No, you're right, yeah. I'm gonna go make a quick phone call, and then I'm gonna... You stay right here. Here's some tea. I'll be right back. Don't move. And then calls the police on him. It's hilarious. I recommend it. Again, because the Invisible Man is such a prevalent... It's basically an archetype at this point, you know? So I recommend reading it. Get the base novel in it. Get the base information there. Again, it's a classic written in... Oh, Jesus. When was this written? 1897. So because it's classic, pick and choose your battles. Because I do believe there is a lot... Oh, I did underline something I thought I saw. Because there is, I believe, some anti-Semitism in here. Ah, classic literature. Never change. And it never will. I thought I saw an underline. Am I stupid? Okay, the answer to that question was yes. It's interesting reading the source material for something like The Invisible Man. Because there's so much surprising stuff. Like, when I think of The Invisible Man, when I think of the architect, I definitely think of somebody who's, like, kind of shy and, you know, reserved and isn't like outwardly doing anything, but is a very smart person who is just invisible. In this book, he murders people. Like, he's a terrible guy. I rated this like 3 out of 5. All right, moving on. We've got, I read Call Down the Hawk by, I believe, Maggie Stiefvater? That's what it looks like. It's very pretty. This is a follow-up series to The Raven Boys, so read The Raven Boys. Next book, we've got Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, I think. I don't know. This is what it looks like. Read The Six of Crows. This is a prequel to that, and it's much worse. Six of Crows is way better. I would recommend that, but apparently there was supposed to be like a TV show that came out for the Christiverse, so I just decided to read the series. The other two are on money to be read for next year. Okay, so these two also just generally are pretty solid fantasy novels. This one's good urban fantasy, this one's just good general fantasy. But I would recommend The Six of Crows before I recommended this one, but if you wanted like an average fantasy book, here it is, it's right here. You're welcome. The Catcher in the Rye, a novel by J.D. Salinger. I don't know how to pronounce names, I'm not sure if you're noticing that just now, but if you are, sorry to hear that for you, man. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, so this is another character study, except this one's only 200 pages long. It's much more manageable than The Invisible Man. It also doesn't deal with as heavy a topic. Instead, we follow Holden Caulfield, I believe his name is. Holden, I think. Yeah, Holden. I'm gonna call him Holden. This book I like to call, oh my god, you're so annoying, please shut up. No, he's fine, to be honest. It's just, you know, we're following his perspective as obviously a very mentally ill, depressed teenager. Great combo, which is probably like the worst chemical soup combo you can be in life. I can understand why, you know, a lot of people very much relate to this book or find they like it more or less as they get older. Because it is an interesting read. Because while you're reading it, if you've ever been a depressed teenager before, like, this dude gets it. The world sucks and you suck. And also, you would not believe how badly the world sucks. But you suck way less in comparison. It's just a difficult time. The book itself is pretty good. You just, again, because it's a character study, the plot is really simple. We just follow Holden after he ditches school and he just gallivants in New York for like a couple of days. He just talks about things all the time and it's like, dude, could we maybe try calming down, maybe? Could we try that? You haven't tried that, I promise you haven't. The end of the book is, it's interesting, right? Because, I don't know what to say about this. And I think that's the whole point of the book, is basically, you get it if you've ever been a depressed teenager, and if you're not a depressed teenager, or you've never been a depressed teenager, it's very annoying. It's an interesting kind of relatable. So if you have ever been a depressed teenager, you read it and you're like, yeah, no, yeah, this tracks. That's why they make high schoolers read it, I bet you. You can tell that he's actually really going through a lot and that he has no output for it, you know? Like, he's got nowhere to go kind of thing. And it is kind of a depressing read, but I would recommend it. I find with character studies, I prefer them to be a little bit shorter because I just cannot stay still for that long. Alright, what's next? The Umbrella Academy by Gerard Way. I'm not sure if you could tell by the everything about me, but I'm a big fan of Gerard Way. So, I'm wearing my Chemical Romance shirt right now. That was an accident. No, this is one of the first ever graphic novels I've ever read. So, I should have expected the story to be condensed. I didn't, though. That was my fault. Like, read the graphic novel if you want to, because, like, it's fun and you get to see all this cool artwork and you get a really basic understanding of the characters, but you can just watch the TV show too, that's fine. That's the end of that one, because I think I was sitting like this for a little bit, and that means I'm not in frame. Oh, you probably couldn't even see my My Chemical Romance shirt. I'm wearing a My Chemical Romance shirt. That's why it was funny that I mentioned Gerard Way. Also, I kind of look like him right now because of my hair. Okay, what's next? Okay, and then I also read Wilder Girls by Rory, what was her name? Rory Power. This one's fun. It's like a post-apocalyptic world, right? Except we're focused in one area. We're on an island when a disease breaks out, causing everybody to quarantine. So because we're on this island, we very much get to have this very oh god, I think the world we're trying to kill me. Oh. So it's very interesting. So because we're on an island, we get this very separated view from society. So it very much feels like that the all-girls school, where this is set at, is the only thing in the universe, because it is for these girls at this moment, even though they know that outside of there, everybody else is fine, you know? It's only on this island. It's like a pox. That's what it's called, P-O-X, pox. And it just causes people to, like, die, because it's, you know, it's just a... What am I looking for? It's a plot thing, but it does cause the younger teachers and the girls who go to the school, who are all like prepubescent, like 9 to 16-year-olds, it causes them to have hardcore, crazy body mutations. So this book is filled with like body horror descriptions and stuff. It's pretty cool. So like the main girl obviously has something wrong with her eye. You can tell in the cool artwork for the book, which I threw away because I don't care about book covers. She's got like these cool wrappings or whatever. And one of the girls that she's friends with has like this, her spine sticks out of her back, the bones stick out of her back. It's all weird and creepy looking. Yeah, no, it's actually really good. So basically you're with the main character whose name is certainly something. Hold on. Hetty, that's her name. Her name is Hetty. So she's got some weird eye thing. We follow Hetty basically as her and her two friends are stuck inside of this weird setting where there's like little food, and the school as a whole is supposedly one group, but also not really. All of the girls are kind of separated. So you're basically just trying to figure out what's going on and why this pox is a thing and what happened and what caused it and stuff. So fair warnings for this book. The way the author describes the disease and how it works is like a little turfy, and I'm warning you now because, you know, it reminds me of that old Tumblr post where it's like, what if there was a zombie apocalypse but they made it so it only affected the Y chromosome because, you know, it's set in the 1950s and the 50s were sexist, and then you could just see a bunch of housewives beating up zombies with like crowbars in their pretty dresses, and it's like, yeah, that's a cool idea. It's a little turfy though. Basically, the disease kills dudes, just full on kills them, but it mutates women because of the estrogen, and it only really affects them after they start their period, or when they would start their period. All the girls after getting the pox no longer get their period, they just are mutated now. I mean, it's good. I like it. It's a good book. It's a little turfy. Keep an eye out for that, alright? Listen. You gotta pick and choose your battles. Okay, also, the way that, like, it ends, it just ends like that. That's how it ends. Just ends. You won't get it unless you've read it, and I recommend you read it. Just ends. Just be ended. We just ended the book. I can't wait to see what else this author will write, and I hope we stay aware of certain topics when we're reading, particularly social ones. Okay, next one. King Lear. This was boring. The Fool actually was not boring. The rest of it was boring. Okay, so Macbeth was fun. Basically, you just get to watch these three witches just like trick a dude into becoming a murderer. It's great. Lady Macbeth is great. She's like, hey dude, murder him so that we can get rich and famous. Thank you. So this Macbeth ends up like killing everybody, and you're like, all right, you do that. Maybe this isn't a great idea. There's nothing to say about Shakespeare. You read Shakespeare so you can understand the rest of literature, and like them by themselves, they're great because it's Shakespeare, dude. Like, of course it's good, but there's not much to say that hasn't already been said, you know? Yeah, so like the main plot device, if you don't know, because it's Macbeth. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling Macbeth by Shakespeare for you. Basically, for none of woman born shall harm Macbeth. And then this dude who was born by a C-section murders him. Really a gotcha moment. What do the kids call that? A bruh moment? Yeah. Macduff was from his mother's room untimely ripped. It was a C-section, baby. Develops a god complex, and then they're like, ha, Psych. Oh, Lady Macbeth when she goes mad. Her madness is really cool. I read Pretty Little Liars when I was way too young to read Pretty Little Liars and watch the show. So that always just reminds me of Spencer. In the book, she loses it. She goes crazy while playing Lady Macbeth because of A. And I think in the TV show, she also goes a little bit crazy. It's really cool though. So that's what that reminded me of. I don't know, it's Macbeth. It's Macbeth. What am I supposed to talk about with Macbeth? I got the No Fear version by SparkNotes because I'm stupid. This is helpful. Do not rely on their translated version. Obviously, like word for like this is not Shakespeare. This is Shakespeare. This is so you can understand what he's trying to, like the general idea. This is what you want to read. This is just for reference. Okay. A lot of people really harp on the No Fear version of Shakespeare. I find it's great for a reference where you're mainly focusing on what he's actually saying, the themes and general stuff, and focus less on this one and more use this just to get better at being able to read Shakespeare in English. This is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This one's fun. This one makes King Lear not boring. Read King Lear and Macbeth and Hamlet, and then you can read this one so it makes sense. I didn't do that, so I was like lost a little bit. No, this is classic dark academia, you know. There's like 7 kids in this like hardcore theater school where like they just do theater and like that's the main thing, and like all these teachers are putting all this pressure and stuff on them, and you know, the guy we're following, like, can't pay for it, and, like, it's a whole thing, and there's so much stress and too much, and there's this tight-knit group, and then somebody's dead. Oh no. And so it's your classic dark academia novel. It's great. It's great. I really liked how she incorporated the actual plays into the book because obviously the students are performing the plays. She does an excellent job of that. And also it's set up like a, you know, act whatever, scene whatever. So that's fun. This is just a fun book. I would recommend it. It's just a murder mystery novel set inside of a school filled with a bunch of kids who are losing it because of all the pressure put on them. It's great. I would recommend it. All right. And then, yes. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I like these versions by Barnes & Noble, these like cute little classical versions. I'm not sure if you can tell, I've got like a whole bunch on my shelf. I like them, I think they're cute. So Wuthering Heights. This one took me forever to read just because I got lazy. What do you say about Wuthering Heights? These 2 terrible people love each other, and they're terrible to each other and everybody around them. And you just have to sit there and read it. Let's see, I highlighted more in this one. Oh yeah, this quote always gets passed around. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same. That's a cute quote. This dude's like a terrible person. That lady, like the girl who says it, is like terrible. This one is a gothic literature, which means that there's more focus on how the setting affects the characters, more of a focus on the characters themselves, and the romance that's in here is very gothic. It's this focus with like obsession and possession. If anybody watched The Haunting of Bly Manor, where there was that whole theme of like, a love isn't possessing somebody. In this book, love is possessing somebody. So you really get to see the other side of that, because there's quotes like that all the time. Not that one. Hold on. Everybody pause. I cannot live without my life. I cannot live without my soul. He's obviously, this is after the main girl dies. Whoops. Spoiler. Again, it's Wuthering Heights. There's no such thing as spoiling classical books, I'm sorry. But it deals a lot with like that idea of possession and romance. Our main characters are Heathcliff and Catherine, and that's like the main romance throughout this. And they don't actually end up ever getting together, which is kind of a good thing. But they do torment every single person around them, so it's kind of also a bad thing. They're both terrible, terrible people. Like, also, fair warning, look at this genealogy tree. You see those M's right here? Hold on, let me flip this camera around so I can make sure you're seeing this nonsense. You see this? You see these M's? That means married. That's not the kind of family tree you want, friends. Ah, the joys of modern medicine. So we focus on possession as like, not a theme of love, but the idea that these 2 people have of love, which is owning things, or owning each other, I should say. So there's a lot of talk about how like they're somebody else's soul, or like I said earlier with that quote, you know, I only wish us never to be parted, and should a word of mine distress you hereafter, think I feel the same distress underground, and for my own sake, forgive me. I shall love mine yet and take him with me. He is in my soul. Would you like to live with your soul in the grave? So there's a lot of possession in the book. I love my murderer, but yours, how can I love your murderer? You know, it's this focus on possession and how they really do seem to care about each other, but they're so terrible to each other. And it's like you don't want them to get together, but like they're perfect for each other and they very much deserve each other. And then there's like themes of revenge and how, like, because of these two things, thinking you need to own somebody and thinking that you need to get revenge on something, ultimately ruins any chance of happiness that any of the characters have until the end of the book. The end of the book is actually very sweet. It ends on a very sweet note, because by the end of the book, the characters who are left don't want to murder each other. They don't want to focus their lives on revenge or owning people. It's mainly just wanting to live a good life after their main tormentor is gone. So it's very interesting. It's an excellent example of Gothic literature. It's an excellent example of Gothic romance, actually. Obsession is very much a part of Gothic romance, where it's like, oh, this one person is the best person ever in the entire world. If you watch The Addams Family, it's like that. This is this but dark, right? You can see how that romance between Gomez and Morticia, where it's like, oh, they love each other more than anything in the world. Their soul, you know, they talk about it. You've watched The Addams Family. You can see how that could be turned dark. Most people actually don't like Wuthering Heights. It's an interesting book because you're just reading about terrible people doing terrible things. So if that's not something you're interested in, you will not like this book. Those were my 2020 books in review. I could probably do a review video on every single book I read because I have so much to say about them. Mainly because I just read my books and then I have nobody to talk to about them. I just read them and sit like this while I absorb and process. So I could do so many reviews. Maybe I shouldn't promise that. I'm kind of stupid. I can't really form sentences very well. Alright, so that was my 2020 a year in books in which I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 books. I believe my goal for next year is 10 books, which makes sense. I like to read. As you can see, I have a collection behind me. If you would like to, I don't know, see me do a video about my favorite books, I would love to do that. I mentioned like The Six of Crows like 10 times. That's because it's an excellent book that I highly recommend to everybody. You can follow me on Goodreads. That way you'll know when I finish a book. Cheers to that. None of these books are organized behind me, by the way. I still have to do that. I did that for a video. Thinking like a true YouTuber. You might see a couple books back here that I plan on reading next year. So that's exciting. Next year, which is in like 3 days. So, Happy New Year. Hopefully next year is better than the current year we are living in. I hope everybody watching has a nice, comfortable, and safe year next year. We've been through a lot this year, and I think it would be nice if we kind of just had a chill year. Nobody do anything. Sit still and don't move. Oh, can you tell where one of the books came from? Came from right here in my shirt. We'll just do that. Too bad it's the end of the video, huh?